Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story from our OP's grandfather, who was in his early 40s in the 1970s during the big gas crunch. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Grandpa's Revenge. Why doesn't my Chevy Nova get 30 miles per gallon anymore? My grandfather was an upper mid-level employee at a fuel service station. The way he tells it, he wasn't management, but just a veteran employee. So a new guy gets hired, we'll call him Jason, because I've never met a Jason I liked, who immediately claims to know how to do everything. He tells Grandpa on day one that he already knows how to do everything. Jason mostly ignores Grandpa's training and orientation and claims to have a better, faster, or more efficient way to do everything. After 2 weeks of being on the job, Jason offers to train the other guys who've been working there for years, for only a pay raise. Management declines his offer. Jason manages to piss everybody off right quick. Jason basically claimed to be a car savant. He claimed that his innate understanding of mechanics and the inner workings of cars allowed him to maximize fuel efficiency. Jason claimed that he could improve his fuel efficiency as he drove his car, a Nova. I'm guessing late 60s, early 70s model by Grandpa's timeline. He claimed the fuel efficiency would continue to improve as he did his own maintenance and tricks to the car. In Jason's mind, the fuel crunch was bullcrap Democratic fear-mongering, and his fuel-saving measures were proof of his intellectual superiority. He figured he'd be promoted to management soon and told my grandpa to stay in his good graces if he wants to keep his job after his promotion. Keep in mind, Jason is barely a month into a new job at a service station. The Revenge. None of the employees liked him, but he wasn't bad enough to get fired or force him to quit. Jason was a jerk, but not dangerous or a liability. The crew decided to humble him. Around the end of the first month, everyone was sick of hearing about his crappy Nova. He'd work on it in the service bays after hours and brag about its improvements. I don't know how much involvement my grandfather had in this revenge, but Jason's downfall was orchestrated like a classic Russian novelist tortures a protagonist. The service crew started adding fuel to Jason's car while he worked, just a little. It started a cup at a time. Then after the crew realized Jason was too thick to notice, they started adding pints and quarts, sometimes a gallon before a weekend. Jason kept track of his mileage and fuel ups in a notepad in his glove box. The crew kept track of how much fuel they added. Jason was going further and further on a tank every week. After about 3 months, he was bragging to anyone who'd listen that he was getting nearly 30 miles per gallon with his Nova. I don't know what size it was, but Wikipedia says the Novas had engines between 3 liters and 5 liters in the 60s and 70s. Grandpa said at the peak they were adding a gallon of fuel a day to Jason's car. The crew decided it was time to pull the rug out. They stopped adding fuel just long enough for Jason to get about 2 tanks, where one low number couldn't be a fluke. He couldn't figure out why his miles per gallon plummeted. He stopped bragging and started putting in extra hours after work to try and diagnose his car. He changed his air intake, his oil, and filter. Jason was visibly agitated whenever crew members asked about his car. Jason about died when they began siphoning fuel. Grandpa said Jason redoubled his efforts to find the problem. He changed the oil twice a week, oiled wheel bearings and the crankcase, bought new tires, changed fuel grades. He even tried blending fuel grades. He'd leave cardboard under the car to spot leaks. He tried parking at different slopes to see if stuff leaked. He checked seals and replaced them even if they were good. Even with all the stuff wrong with his car, Grandpa said the guy was still arrogant about his prowess under the hood. The crew decided it was enough. They just about recovered the fuel they'd placed in Jason's car and decided to stop siphoning at the end of the week. Jason gave them one last laugh, though. He'd become a little paranoid about Grandpa's service station, so he took it to some other service station and complained that the Nova wasn't getting 30 miles per gallon anymore. They laughed him out of the station. The crew never confessed to their crime, and Jason was none the wiser. Jason was still a jerk, but he shut up about his car for the rest of the time he worked there. And our second story. You both decide not to train me while at work? Okay. I hope I can explain this properly. This has been a petty revenge years in the making. So I've been at my job for just under 3 years now. I'm in a project management doing environmental chemistry and testing. It's a decent gig and I like the people I work with, mostly. I work closely with 2 women who've been in their positions for quite a few years. We're talking 15 years for one and 5 years for the other. They worked their way to their current spots over time and have coasted since. I got hired into this group immediately and I don't think they quite like that. See, they hardly trained me. Most of what I've learned has been self-taught or I sought out help from others. There's been weeks at a time where they're both super busy and drowning in work while I sit and browse Reddit, but I get by with a few office tricks and playing politician, so I'm seen as a hard worker and willing to learn. Honestly, I'm not sure if their plan was to get me fired, but there's been times it felt as such. Didn't work if it was. On to the pettiness. The main part of our jobs is to dictate any non-conformance issues the lab analysts had while performing any given task. The lab enters their notes into our system, Microsoft Access spits them out with a ghostwriter program, and we edit the notes before it's sent to clients. Simple part of the job, but we get to do it all day and it can get super tedious and specific. On average, we process 10 to 15 of these a day, each taking at least 5, but most take more. So in an 8-hour day, it's a big chunk. They complain all day about how Access opens up Word with a 100% zoom by default, and it's a pain to read and strains their eyes. By the time we go home, they have headaches and their eyes hurt. Well, I figured out immediately how to change the default setting so mine appears at 130% and I can read it just fine. They asked me how once and I say, I don't know, just got lucky, I guess. And I've pretended ever since. Not too petty, right? They both just got new internal jobs and start next week. I get to train the new people. When one of them got up from their desk today, it clicked. My real revenge. I also got up and pretended to adjust papers. I glanced over to the other computer and asked why she had Word open so tiny. It's got to be tough to read all day, yeah? I then explained how to change the default setting to open more zoomed. She acted all sorts of happy, but then saw it connect in her head. She immediately knew I'd let her go for years and didn't say a word. So later I did it to the other girl. Have fun at your new jobs. Hope your damn eyes hold out. Sounds like they deserved it even more so because of how lazy they were. A simple Google search would have solved all their problems. This makes me nervous about what the quality of whatever other lab work they were doing. If they couldn't figure out or Google a fix for such a consistent headache, mean and dumb, winning combo there. And our last story. Stay off the lawn, please. I used to live in a room for rent, and it had this nice dogwood tree out front. I would plant flowers for the front to look fantastic. I'd decorate for the holidays. As I was the most able-bodied renter, it was demanded/expected of me. At least we had people to mow the lawn. We lived next to a family whom had more kids than they knew what to do with, so at least 8 kids from that family alone, while there were about a dozen other kids who lived in other houses around the neighborhood, and for some odd reason the kids gravitated to our house, the house that all the parents told them had mental nutcases, the house that had an ambulance, cops, or firefighters added every month or two due to something. Yet, despite the blaring lights that should have said stay away, the children would come and play in our yard. When I say play, I should say destroy. Those flowers I planted, ripped up. Those decorations, ripped up, mangled, missing, or something of the like. And our beloved dogwood tree, kids would climb on that to no tomorrow and even break its branches. My landlady put out a sign saying no trespassing. The kids don't stop. My one housemate tried chasing them off with her walker while screaming things that sounded like she needed a hospital. That didn't stop them. Only made them worse. Another roommate tries hosing the kids with the hose. That got us yelled at by their parents. I was walking up to the altercation as I just finished shopping and had some snacks in my personal shopping cart. "How dare you do that to our kids?" yelled one parent. Do what? I asked calmly. She soaked our kids with a hose, the parent yelled at me as if I was hard of hearing. Ow! I'm right here. You don't need to yell. And if I know anything, it's odds are your kids were on the lawn again and destroying it. Who cares? You're not allowed to touch my kids. We care. Your kids are destroying our things. It isn't public property. You have no rights, snapped the parent as he did finger quotes for own. I took in a deep breath. You are massively incorrect on many accounts, but as you are so simple, I will make this easier for you to understand. Your kids can and will get hurt if they continue their actions. They climb our dogwood tree and have already broken several branches off it. We will not be held responsible for you or your children's actions. If you show up on our property again, the cops will be called. Now leave, I yelled. The man got into my face. You can't tell me what to do. You're mentally ill. I know it. I smirked at him as he grabbed my shirt. That's right. And you know what that means if you hit me with that mentality? I hate crime, which makes things worse, I said with a smirk. Dad, she's the one that was doing the knife tricks the other day, said one of the little boys whom belongs to his family. I never seen anyone back off faster in my life. He left with his horde of kids and other parents, all the while swearing and flipping us off. Honey, you might want to chase those kids down. They stole half your food while you were yelling at them, said my housemate. I looked down and saw my cart now much lighter, and yep, I went screaming after them, demanding my food back. I never got it back. This morning I got a call from an old housemate. Apparently, one of the kids of that parent was on the dogwood tree again, fallen and broke something. He's trying to sue everyone in the house, but sadly he only knows the first names of a couple of people, all of which have moved out of the house. My old housemate was just telling me because that went down shortly before I moved out and she was worried I'd be sued. However, I'm quite sure I'm not, since everyone around there used nicknames for me, and I'm pretty sure my name isn't Knives, Cat, Aqua, or Witch. But I feel bad for the kid who got hurt. A little. I did warn them. Anything you own is public property. My kid fell out of your tree. I'm suing. Yup, that makes sense. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.